Hello everyone, I'm Jaye Cottrill, the Global Marketing Communications Manager here at LaserTech. Every Tuesday around 2 p.m. Mountain Time, we go live with a subject matter expert about solutions in traffic safety or in professional measurement. You can join us on your coffee break. We were just talking about Starbucks, in fact, and we're live for about 15 minutes. If you have any questions or comments for guests or for LaserTech, go ahead and post them, and we'll answer them either in real time or we might use them as a subject for another LTI Tuesday at 2 conversation. Today, we are continuing our special IACP series. We're featuring people this month who are invaluable to the LaserTech traffic safety team and to traffic safety worldwide. So today, I'm honored to sit down with Steve Casstevens, who is president of IACP. Thanks, Steve, for joining me today. Would you mind introducing yourself for the people who have not had a chance to meet you?
Sure. I am Chief of Police in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago. I've been in law enforcement for 44 years now. Started my law enforcement career with the military police with 101st Airborne. Worked for several agencies throughout Illinois, and I've been Chief of Police here in Buffalo Grove for 8 years. And I will be IACP President for about 10 more days.
Is it a bittersweet ending for you?
It is. It is. A lot of challenges. Every president in the past that I've talked to said that the year goes incredibly fast, and they couldn't have been more true. They really have.
Right. So as president of IACP this year, you had some expectations and hopes for your year, and there were unexpected challenges and successes this year. So are there any successes that you could highlight when it comes to road safety?
Yeah, I think so. Despite the challenges that we've had, not only me as president, IACP, our profession of policing as a whole, but globally. I had a lot of priorities that I wanted to accomplish as president, and I had a lot of great plans. Had over 31 international trips that I had planned that were canceled. But we still accomplished some of those things that I wanted to accomplish despite the global pandemic. And most IACP presidents come in with 3 distinct priorities, and I did as well. One of my priorities was preventing officer suicide. Another priority was police response to active threats. But probably my most passionate one was global road safety. And this is one that I think we did our best on accomplishing some of what I wanted to accomplish, despite the lack of travel and the global pandemic and civil unrest. I am pleased to say that when I first started talking about global road safety as being one of my priorities as incoming president just over a year ago, the IACP had been in the early stages of working with Bloomberg Philanthropies, and the project that they were working on was, in fact, to prioritize global road safety in some countries that didn't have the resources that many of us have here in the United States. And so the first project was to work on road safety in the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And during my year as incoming president, I made 3 separate trips to Sao Paulo, and I met the leaders of the police organization there, and I met the project managers, and I saw everything that they were doing to improve road safety. Interestingly, when they were taking me to one of their educational displays, one of the first things I noticed was some LTI products sitting there off to the side on the shelf that were educating young school children on. And I went taking a picture of that LTI product and texting it to Roosevelt Rogers and said, well, look what I found down here in Brazil.
Well, good.
But that project was so successful with IACP working with Sao Paulo police and their road safety people to reduce traffic fatalities and to reduce traffic crashes, that Bloomberg Philanthropies wanted us to replicate that same project in more cities and more countries. And so they followed up with over a $6 million grant to IACP. And we're now starting similar programs on road safety in Buenos Aires, Argentina, another location in Sao Paulo State, in Salvador and Recife, Brazil, also in Bogota and Cali, Colombia, Guayaquil and Quito, Ecuador, Bangalore and Delhi, India, and Guadalajara, Mexico. So that's quite an international project for IACP on road safety.
Right. Do you have any stats? Like how did you measure success? How successful was this project?
Well, part of the success that we looked at in Sao Paulo was clearly the reduction in traffic fatalities. And we accomplished that through a variety of ways, through speed enforcement, through education, and also working with the road engineers because they have a significant traffic congestion problem in Sao Paulo. The city grew so fast, but the infrastructure and roadways did not grow at the same speed. So they have immense overcrowding on all of their roadways. And so people are transitioning from cars and trucks to motorbikes. And they are lane splitting 20, 30, 40 motorcycles at a time. And it's really frightening to watch how fast they are going through 6 lanes of traffic. And so it was a combination of enforcement and education and trying to work with their road engineers to redesign traffic flow. And they had one area of Sao Paulo State where before we got there, they were having 16 roadway fatalities a week, which is absolutely unheard of. And they couldn't even keep up with the fatal crash investigations. They just didn't have the technology, they didn't have the training, they didn't have the officers. So those are some of the things we're working on as well. And so we saw in the whole area that we worked on, 5 major areas, we saw over a 30% reduction in traffic fatalities during our project time.
That is impressive. I can see why they want you to replicate that in so many other places.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've heard at LaserTech as we're talking with police and sheriff's departments and highway safety is that during the pandemic with less congestion, there's actually been a rise in fatalities, or at least it's staying the same. Have you seen that worldwide as well?
I have. I've heard from a lot of law enforcement agencies, specifically state police, highway patrol agencies, that many of their roadways are like racetracks all of a sudden. I drive Interstate 90 from my home to Buffalo Grove every morning to work, and in 8 years I've never been passed by so many cars doing over 100 miles per hour in the last 4 months in my life. And it's a combination, as you say, more people working from home, which means fewer cars on the road every day during morning and afternoon rush, which provides an opportunity for those who choose to drive at exorbitant speeds.
So does IACP have an initiative or a project to address that this year?
Yeah, we've worked with our both our SACOP and S&P, our state and provincial divisions, to specifically address these issues through both enforcement and education, and trying to get those messages out to people that, you know, that it's like the Autobahn in Germany. People drive very fast there, but when you do get in a crash, it's typically now a fatal because of the excessive speed. As you know, a crash at 70 is a lot different than a crash at 105. And so that's what the message we're trying to get out to the police departments to get to their communities. Slow down. This is about traffic safety even more than ever during COVID.
Right. Yeah, it's these really high speed crashes are just not a pretty thing at all. So you've been working with IACP on the global stage, working internationally, working within our own country, how have you been balancing that with working for your hometown?
It's a great question, and it's a great balancing act. One of the things that I was told, and I've told everybody else since 5-6 years ago when I decided to run for vice president, knowing eventually 5 years later I'd be president, you can't do it if you don't have two things. And those two things are a city, both elected officials and your city manager, who completely and 100% support you. But more importantly, you better have a good deputy chief or two deputy chiefs who you trust to manage the agency while you're on travel. And I have been lucky enough during my time to have two deputy chiefs that I not only trust implicitly, but I know every night when my head goes on the pillow, if I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, or if I'm in Dubai, that I'm not worried, that I know that they're capable of handling things while I'm gone.
It's great to have a good team to back you up then. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we talked a little bit about technology and what part it plays in road safety. But could you elaborate? I know you said you saw some of our equipment down in Sao Paulo, but how does IACP see technology playing a part in road safety?
Oh, it's such an incredible part of road safety. And again, I think back to, I started in this job 44 years ago, and maybe one of 25 of our squad cars had a radar, and you really weren't sure of the quality of that radar. And now you fast forward 44 years, and I look at the incredible use of technology in so many ways in traffic safety, not just in speed enforcement and enforcing following too closely, which is a huge issue as well, but technology on cameras on school buses, catching violators that are passing a stopped school bus with the stop arm out, speed cameras, red light cameras, event data recorders, and the system that downloads that EDR information after a crash. As I mentioned before we started here, my police department is part of a regional fatal crash investigation team in the Chicago suburban area. And we have well-trained officers that come with all sorts of technology. And one of the first things that we look at is, do any of the vehicles involved in this crash have event data recorders? And we have the laptops and the cables and the technology to immediately download that information. We have templates to request a search warrant to get that information off of the car. And that information has really been incredible in crash investigation for us.
I hadn't even thought of the event data recorders, but that makes a lot of sense. What do you do when you have a vehicle that does not have one of those?
Well, then you better rely on some really good trained crash reconstruction experts. This is when it comes down to collecting a lot of information on speed estimates based on skid marks, based on the amount of crash damage between the two vehicles. So there's a lot of information that goes into crash reconstruction. And downloading information off an EDR is not a substitute for a great crash investigation. It's just one more tool that helps to contribute to the totality of your investigation.
Okay, that makes sense. So would you measure the crash damage on every crash? I mean, how do you decide which ones are the important ones if you don't have an EDR to work with?
Well, that's a great argument that when I used to teach traffic management analysis for Northwestern University, that's one of the topics that I discussed for a long time with law enforcement leaders, is the importance of doing a complete crash investigation on every crash. So typically, when a police department gets a very serious crash or a fatality crash, that's when they bring out all the experts and they bring out all the equipment. And it's much like a homicide scene. You're making scale diagrams, and you're taking photographs, and you're doing all this evidence collection. The difference between a homicide and a fatal crash is a fatal crash can be prevented if you look at data of all crashes in your community. So if you have a location in your community that's a high crash location, but almost all of the crashes are property damage only, they're fender benders, really nobody gets seriously hurt, but then all of a sudden you have a fatality or a serious injury crash, you're going to wish you'd have done a better job investigating the 15 or 20 before that happened at the same location in similar manner, because now you can develop information on trend data. Why are these crashes here happening in the first place? Maybe it's an engineering issue, maybe it's a speed issue, maybe it's a sightline issue. So that's why I preach it's important to do a full crash investigation on every crash, not just waiting until the ones that are serious.
That makes a lot of sense. As a marketer, we use data a lot, and the more data you have, the better decisions you can make. So it makes sense that you would want to do that for even your fender benders and things that aren't nearly as big and newsworthy.
Well,
so what are you...
I think what's important also is, especially now when a lot of police departments are working with fewer officers due to budget cuts because of COVID-related revenue losses to cities, a lot of police departments are under the practice that if there's a car crash and somebody calls it in, the dispatcher will say, is anybody hurt and are the cars drivable? And if nobody's hurt and the cars are drivable, we're not sending an officer. You just come to the station and we'll make a report here. Well, that does your entire community a disservice, because you did not send an officer to the scene to determine really how that crash happened. And maybe the data you gather from there can prevent the next one.
That is a really good point. So, what are you focusing on for 2021 now that you're completing your year as president?
Well, luckily I get to stay on the IACP executive board for one more year as the immediate past president. And in that role, if travel opens up and if COVID allows us to travel again, I still will be traveling. And my hope is that I'll be able to travel to some of those cities that I mentioned earlier where we have these traffic safety projects, because I'd really like to make a personal visit to those cities to see how the projects are doing and to personally thank those people for the work that they're doing to reduce traffic fatalities.
Well, I hope that you can get that done.
Me too.
I think we all would like to do a little more traveling and know that COVID is being taken care of. So as we wrap up, because we have talked for 15 minutes and I promised everyone we'd keep it short, just one random question for a longtime fan of ours, Vinny Alvino.
That's nice.
Yes. What is your favorite pizza topping?
I'm a simple man. I'm just going to go with sausage. I love a cheese and sausage pizza. Don't get the pepperoni in there. Don't get the peppers or the onions or any of that other stuff in the way. Just give me a simple cheese and sausage pizza.
That sounds good. Well, this has been really fun. Is there one thought you would like to leave with us, Steve?
The one thought I would say, which still revolves around traffic and highway safety, I was very passionate in traffic safety when I started this job 44 years ago, and I am pleasantly surprised that 44 years later, I'm still able to make it a priority at the level that I've been able to do it.
Well, I think everything starts with traffic safety. Keeping everyone safe on the roads helps communities stay safer. It helps all of the police officers stay safe. It's just a very important thing for any community that wants to focus on safety. I would like to thank everyone else who has joined us today. Any new comments posted here on the recording will be passed along by the marketing team. If you want to be alerted about upcoming Tuesday at 2 events, don't forget to like LaserTech's Facebook page and adjust your notification settings. You can also join our events as they're posted so that you can get reminders for upcoming live streams. Looking ahead, next week on October 20th, we will be chatting with Roosevelt Rogers, Kevin Fremont, and Craig Wright, who are all part of the LaserTech traffic safety team. So until then, drive safely, everyone. Thank you.